Aha, I'm here to shock. Shocking. Gurdjieff talks a lot about shocks. We need shocks to wake us up. We have shocks all the time. Life's not that easy, is it? As I've said before, always expect the unexpected. We need a shock now and then to make us be alive, come alive, come alive. So why does he talk about these shocks? Because people aren't prepared for them, which we shouldn't be, because we never know when a shock's coming. And then when we had the shocks, hopefully they wake us up, but do we stay awake? Who knows? It's different for each person. So with these shocks, he says in Meetings with Remarkable Men, the initial shock from my mental and feeling associations which brought about this awareness was the discovery of tablets no less than 4,000 years old with the legend of Gilgamesh. Now, this was one of the shocks that Gurdjieff had as a young man. I'm sure many of you know the stories of Gilgamesh and found on the tablets. I think they were translated in the early 1900s, maybe the 1880s, something like that anyway. So the story of Gilgamesh wasn't really known in the Western world, but Gurdjieff's father was I think he was called an ashop. He sang songs of old stories, recited them in an oral tradition that had been handed down for a long time, for centuries. And Gurdjieff says that his father used to recite the story of Gilgamesh. And then one day, the Gilgamesh tablets were discovered, translated, and Gurdjieff came across this translation, was stunned to find that it was almost the same as what his father had been saying. And for him, this was a bit of a shock because it showed that his father and this oral tradition had carried on for all these centuries, millennium, and were more or less keeping to the same story of Gilgamesh, hadn't been changed over time. So these kinds of shocks can be nice, surprising ones like that for Gurdjieff, or they can be real shock, horrible shocks that many of us had, health issues or such things. But they make us look at things suddenly in a different way. And he says in All and Everything that there can be statues that we can look at for objective art to kind of shock us into really feeling what we need to feel or think or say. And I've done a show on the statue of conscience that he talks about, but here's just a little recite that he talks about the Sphinx. Each part of this allegorical figure, the Sphinx, gives to every member of our society in all the free, independently associating parts of his common presence, namely in the body, in the thoughts and in the feelings, a shock for the corresponding associations for those separate cognizances, which in their totality can alone give us the possibility of gradually getting rid of those undesirable factors present in every one of us, as a consequence of which we are not as we might be. And it could be a shock for people when they realise that we are not the true humans we are meant to be. We're all programmed robots that are going around doing what we've been programmed to do by our peers. And it can be quite a shock to suddenly realise that your governments lie, that your peers lie, that your parents lie, and that life is not this ideal Disney type fantasy land that we think it is. But having that shock hopefully makes you start looking at what is true in life and what is real and what you believe in, etc. I did a program on belief the other day, and looking at yourself and how you can develop yourself to be a real person, a real I. Most of the time we go around as a certain person, you've got your work head on for work, I've said this before, you've got your family head on for when you're with your family and your loved ones, and your friendly social head on when you're with your mates. But becoming more aware that life isn't what you think it is, or have been told it is, and suddenly becoming aware that there's more to life than what we're programmed to accept. There's a certain I in us that wants to come through to lead us into reality, into truth. And sometimes it takes a few shocks to make that the other eyes quieten down so that the real eye can come through. And he says, where is it? Oh, now I'm just going to pause because I've lost my page. It's actually Ouspensky I was looking for, which is why I couldn't find it. So Ouspensky reminds us in Search of the Miraculous, he will understand that he is a machine controlled by accidental shocks from outside. Each shock calls to the surface one of his eyes, a new shock, and that eye disappears and a different one takes its place. And we do get a lot of accidental shocks. And Gurdjieff talks about we want shocks that put us onto the line of fate so that we're, no longer in the world of accident. World of accident, law of accident, that's when we're just following along with everything and not being awake. But if we're more aware of what's going on, hopefully we move into another stream where we can see that what's being given to us is to help us develop. The shocks are there to prod us. But when you're not in that stream, when you're still asleep and being a robot, the shocks are just accidental ones. Shit happens, as they say. Shit happens and then you die. Well, we don't want that shit to happen to us. Instead, we want good stuff to happen, good shit, so that we can develop ourselves, so that when we die, we've developed ourselves enough ready to move on to the next part of what happens after death. As Gurdjieff says, we were trying to develop a Keshjan body so that when we die, we don't get caught up in the reincarnation cycle. Instead, our soul goes into the Keshjan body and we go on into the next part of the universe, the next part of the world. Just had a shock because I forgot to turn my phone off. And we're going to talk about planetary influences and their shocks from In Search of the Miraculous. Something is missing between the planets and the Earth. Planetary influences cannot pass to the Earth consecutively and fully. An additional shock is indispensable. The creation of new conditions to ensure a proper passage of forces. This mechanical contrivance, this transmitting station of forces is organic life on Earth. Organic life was created to fill the interval between the planets and the Earth. So this is all part of what our role is on this Earth. We want to, if we're developed enough, we will be part of the harmonious maintenance of God, the universe and everything. But if we're not awake enough to be part of that, then we're just being organic creatures living our day-to-day lives, and the energies coming in aren't working through us and we're not developing them, so they go back out again. The involution and the evolution. The involution is the forces coming into us and the evolution is us sending them back out, and we want to send them out rightly rather than just living our lives asleep. Then them energies aren't being transformed properly and helping the development and the continuation of the universe. And Ouspensky reminds us it is only shocks that can lead a man out of the state in which he lives, that is, waken him. Not electric shocks, don't go putting your fingers in sockets, please. That's quite fun, but dangerous, very dangerous, don't do it. So maybe the demons are telling you to. I've often talked to people about when we were kids, and I've heard many people tell me that when they were a child, a voice used to tell them to put their hands in the electric socket. And I kind of remember something being said to me when I was a little kid. My mother had left the iron and I wanted to go and play with the iron and I wanted to burn things in the house. But something was telling me to do that because I knew it was wrong not to do it, and I didn't. Anyway, enough about childhood and demonics. Don't listen to them demonic voices in your heads. Gurdjieff says we love our suffering as humans. Humans love to suffer, woe is me, and go and moan about it and gossip about all the shit that they go through. And Ouspensky reminds us, to destroy suffering would mean first destroying a whole series of perceptions for which man exists. And second, the destruction of the shock, that is to say, the force which alone can change the situation. And it takes a big shock to change you from being mechanical into waking up. But if you go with that shock, what a new world you find, what a new life you discover, which is still difficult at times because you're trying to find yourself, and it's so easy to go back to sleep again. And there's so much temptation out there to go back to sleep. But hopefully that little voice in your head still wants that shock stayed with you enough to make you want to pursue this kind of path, which is not easy. I can't deny that. I've said that in many shows, but perseverance, waking up is, I think myself personally, better than staying asleep and being caught up in the rat race of this life and then being caught up in the whole reincarnation cycle and coming back. Maybe you want to come back to this earth. Maybe you don't want to develop your soul enough to move on. Maybe you don't want to work with the universe and the divine source, which is all part of the waking up. That's the whole point of it all, is so that you're a part of the harmonious development of everything. Maybe you like being part of the chaos, but is it doing you good? You wouldn't be coming to these shows if you didn't already have an inkling for this or want to do something. You know, asleep people won't be watching this show. If you're watching this, it's because you're trying to wake up. I was going to do some more All in Everything, which I know not everyone's read and can be quite a difficult book, but hopefully the words as they come through make some kind of a niggle in you that makes you think, yeah, I can kind of see what's going on. In order to acquire vibrations corresponding to the next highest vivifyingness, which is what we're trying to get to, the higher, the fifth stoppinda of the fundamental process, it inevitably requires just that foreign help, which is actualized only in the presences of the free brain beings, exclusively owing to those factors which are manifested in the being part dole duty. That is, owing to just those factors which our common Father Creator endlessness consented to foreordain to be the means by which certain of the tertocosmoses, as a final result of their serving the purposes of the common cosmic homage, might become helpers in the ruling of the enlarged world, and which factors also until now serve as the sole possible means for the assimilation of the cosmic substances required for the coating and perfecting of the higher being bodies, which we call conscious labors and intentional suffering. So these shocks that are happening to us, that are helping us to develop, are all helping us also to get in touch with our higher selves, to develop our higher bodies, so that we can, when we die, our soul goes on rather than comes back here. But we're also part of his endlessness is God in Gurdjieff's terms, all part of his process of helping the God and the universe work more harmoniously. Right, so I was going to do, right, this is also All in Everything, page 1081. These intelligentsia, mechanicogentia, always act or manifest only when they receive corresponding shocks from outside, which give them the possibility of becoming animated and experiencing only through the unrolling of the series of former corresponding automatic perceptions already present in them. I can't remember what I was going to say about that, but we do want to become more animated. We want to live life. We want to experience life. I think it was Joseph Campbell that said, experience your life. That's the best way to live, or something like that. I paraphrased it there or said it badly. But we want to experience life. And the more you experience, the more you you do wake up, because you suddenly start seeing that through these experiences, you experience what the shit is that's going on, the shit show that's really going on. And Gurdjieff says on page 1178 of All in Everything, let us rejoice over such a worthiness, which is for us such a revivifying shock for our ability to struggle against our own denying source. And we do, we have this denying force in us that doesn't want us to do this. There's an affirming source, blah, blah, blah. Wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiating me for my being. So the denying force is trying to, most of the time, stop us doing this work. The affirming force wants us to do this, and we need this neutralizing force to bring it all together so that we can have all them energies transubstantiating us, to work in us. You know, I've said this before, it happens subtly. There's no tada, well, maybe there is a tada for some people. There wasn't for me. It was a subtle working that happened over time. And then when I look back over in the past, I could see that I had definitely changed, and that I could see that I was more awake than I was years ago, which is what we want to be. We want to be waking up through our life. And I suppose I'm doing these shows to encourage people to do that. And some of you might wake up instantly, and then we can have enlightened people out there that can start leading people in the world in the right way. Because Gurdjieff said we needed a certain amount of woken up people, awake people. I can't speak English. We need a certain amount of awake people that will help the whole world work more harmoniously. And maybe I do strongly believe we're living in the Kali Yuga at the moment, and that is the one that is the more destructive, the dark side. People aren't as awake enough to be working and walking and being a part of the divine cosmos. Instead, they're living for their own materialistic, subjective ways. And the Kali Yuga, thankfully, is the shortest and goes apart quickly. Like the Golden Age is a much longer time. But for the Kali Yuga to end productively, we need people to wake up to lead people into the next age. Otherwise, it won't happen. If there's not awakened people to help people get through this yuga, to start the next yuga, which is going to be a much better one, then who's there to guide them? Who's there to help people? You. Just one more from All and Everything. This cart is designed for travelling on byroads, finds itself stationed on a rank in the city and travelling on smooth, level, asphalted roads. In the absence of any shocks whatsoever while going along such roads, no uniform greasing of all its parts occurs. Well, sadly, life isn't smooth. We're not going along smooth roads. We're going across bumpy roads. So our parts need greasing all the time. We need reminding of what we're doing this work for. We need reminding why this has happened, or reminding to step back and look at why things are happening and not take things personally, instead be impartial, try to understand everything from all views, to think with our thinking and not with our emotions, to feel with our emotions and not with our brain, that kind of thing. Trying to use all our parts correctly. And while the road is not smooth at the moment, this is why we need to keep greasing our wheels. So I hope these shows do help you grease your wheels and help you go forward in your own development. Always appreciate your comments, appreciate people that get in touch, like, you know, I do reply to emails. I like to hear from other people's own, you know, if they can help me, or if I get something wrong, nice to hear what I've done and said so that I can not necessarily correct it on this video, because I don't edit things. Once they're out there, they're out there, but I can rectify it in other videos. Or if anybody would like to do a show with me, do a discussion or something, I'm always up for that as well. What else? Well, I think I'll leave it at that. I've rambled enough, but thank you for watching. Bless you all, and keep those wheels a-going.